Well, good evening.
Good evening.
See, we got a pretty good crowd this evening, and we just need more chairs, or a bigger room, or both. So let's take a look at what we have come for tonight, which is the report on the dining services and the Morrisons contract, basically. Back at the annual meeting in December, the members of the homeowners organization, the owners, decided to form a special committee to evaluate the contract with Morrisons and the food service. We put out a notice to people that if you're interested in the community, on the committee, if you're interested in the committee, please come, put your name forward. We had 5 extra people and myself put their names forward. Everybody who put their name forward was asked to be on the committee. The committee consists of, where are my notes?
Oh, it's right there.
Yeah, I know, but I got a lot of other notes too that I need to work off of. I've been standing over here talking, I should have been doing what I need to do. Anyway, our committee, as is up here as you see, is myself, Barbara Borders, Doris Davies, Sue Gilchrist, Jill Odom, and Walt Pataskowitz. So Walt is with us, and Walt helped me to learn how to pronounce Pataskowitz. So we will test you on that tomorrow. Anyway, let's look at what we started off with. As I said, the special committee was formed, and then the first thing we did is to decide what we wanted to do, how we were going to define what we were doing to narrow the scope, if you will, to where it was more manageable. So we wanted to evaluate the Morrisons contract and provide data to the homeowners association. We wanted to review the survey that Morrison conducted and to discuss how it could be implemented. We wanted to prepare suggestions on how the dining experience at Mount Vernon should be operated, with such things as providing residents with realistic priced nutritional meals, make ordering and serving meals more efficient and easily understood, to ensure options are available for residents with special dietary needs. And to do a dining service must be standard and appropriate for the clientele, so that we have a good flow of what's going on with the dining room with the people that are living at Mount Vernon Towers. So that was our mission, and first thing we did was review the contract. And there are many options in the contract, many details in the contract, but most of those are operational details. And so what we wanted to do was look at the contract from the standpoint of what we're concerned about. First of all, the contract in paragraph 2.2c tells us that this is basically a cost plus contract. The amounts in that paragraph show that we have a budgeted amount, which is the amount that when we talked to Morrisons, that they said was going to be what our anticipated real cost of operations would be. The budgeted amount is the amount that they compared our previous operational expenses against, and what was compared against another outside company for what they said the cost was going to be. So that's the budgeted amount. Then also in that paragraph is the not to exceed amount. Now the not to exceed amount is 11.5% higher than the budget amount. In other words, the contract has a built-in cushion of 11.5%. to where they have a budget amount and they have a not to exceed amount that's 11.5% higher. This is one of the things that was kind of interesting. We'll see more of this as we go down through the presentation. Also included in section 2.2B, did I skip one? Yeah, I skipped one. Cancellation policy, which is also of interest because in the cancellation policy, we can cancel for reasons for cause, but we have to write them a letter and tell them that we want to cancel and here are the reasons, A, B, C, D, E, whatever. And they have 60 days to cure those. That's called a cure period. They have 60 days in which to correct those. If they correct it, fine, everything's working good. If they do not, then we, as Mount Vernon Towers, have to write a second letter that we want to cancel in 60 days. So they then effectively have 120 days to cure what's going on. So anyway, that's the way that part of the contract works. Then in section 2.2B, which is a section which identifies the kind of things that we're going to pay for. We're going to pay for the labor, we're going to pay for the food, we're going to pay for shoes, we're going to pay for various items that are listed there. And towards the end of that paragraph, hidden in that paragraph, is this statement. Nothing in this agreement is to be construed as a representation of guarantee by Morrison that any financial, budgetary, performance, or other goods will be met, with the exception of the restrictions in paragraph 2.2C and the resident satisfaction performance plan described in paragraph 2.8. So, of course, 2.8 is the performance survey, which we'll see a little bit later on. The other paragraph, 2.2C, is what I just talked about before, which is where they're billing us. So, anyway, also included in paragraph 2.2C is a statement about the fact that the expenses will increase at the rate of 3% per year. So this is what we started off with, and where Morrisons worked this into their contract. You have to read the contract about 3 times before you catch on to this little paragraph. All right, let's start looking at some of the other details here. And on total cost basis now, this red line, it's orange here, anyway, this orange line is what we talked about as the not to exceed amount. This is the average monthly expense not to exceed. Remember, we had the budget amount, and we have a not to exceed amount that's 11% higher, 11.5% higher. So this line represents that higher figure. And lo and behold, they're above it. As you see over there on the corner with the total cost, they are $122,000 above the not to exceed. $122,000 above the not to exceed for the year. I mean, I'm talking about not calendar year, but contract year. This means that they're 8.6% above the not to exceed amount. But if you go back to the budget amount, the one that they sold us on that they could do, they're 21.1% over the budget amount. So that's where we are with total cost. Now let's break it down a little bit. We look at the average number of meals, which is important because the lower the number of meals, you've got certain fixed costs that are going to stay the same. So you need to get the meals up to where that matches the 90,000, and this is 7,500 a week. I mean, excuse me, 7,500 a month. And what we need to do is that's 90,000 a year. So that's the target amount. They delivered 86,000 meals this year, and that was at where they spent $1,500,000 $47,000, or the meal cost was $22.53 a meal. Their cost on the not to exceed part was supposed to be $15.83 per meal. The budget amount they told us they could do was going to be $14.20. So at $14.20 compared to the actual of $22.53, they are 58.66% over budget, 59% over budget. And to make things even worse, last month, February, that we have the data for, they were at $28.14 a meal. And that makes them 98.2% over that budgeted amount, almost 100% over the budgeted amount. So, here goes. That's total meal cost. Let's break it down even further. Labor costs by month, you can see here where they're $113,000 over on their labor cost. That's 13% over the not to exceed. One of the things here is that we looked at the labor, and part of the big problem with the labor cost is they're using temporary labor. They're using temporary labor. Instead of, obviously they can't be using temporary labor in all the places they're serving. They've got to be giving other people priority, because on our cost plus contract, they don't really worry as much about it. Anyway, let's move on. Total food cost. All right, on food cost, again, the orange line represents $33,000 a month in food. They are obviously just $27,000 over the not to exceed amount on their budget. If you look at what the Morrisons' proposed cost was, they're 32% over their budget. Most of all these graphs and charts we're showing you are based upon that not to exceed amount, which gives them that 11.5% advantage. All right, another chart, direct cost. All right, direct cost, again, we're looking here at $12,750 a month for the line, and they are actually $18,000 under that not to exceed amount. But look at the interesting thing that happens here. Look at the fact that the proposed budget cost is $106,000, that's the budget amount, and then look at the not to exceed amount, $153,000. That's a 43% cushion that they built into this one for some reason. 43%. But so if you go and look at the expenses versus the actual budget amount, the budget amount they sold us on, they're 26% over the budget amount. So it's, anyway, here we go. Meal data breakdown. Meal breakdown data. Morrisons, as I said before, projected that we would be serving about 90,000 meals a year. This was a figure that we determined was about accurate, because there's no way to know exactly, because that's what our historical number of meals have been, bouncing around 90,000 meals a year. So that was the number we gave them. So far, they've only served 68,697 meals. And that was actually a short year for them, because they didn't serve meals for 365 days. They served meals for 343 days. So it's a little bit, unfair, if you will, but not that much. All right, let's keep going here. And we have here delivery and dine-in by month. And you can see here where all of the meals are in a declining basis as we look at the delivery, which is the blue bar, dine-in, the orange bar. The gray line is the total for dinner. Dinner is losing favor. Dinner is going down. And the average meals provided per day for dinner are 114 meals per day. All right. Delivery versus dine-in for breakfast. Oh, excuse me, for lunch. Yeah, I got another chart. No, lunch. Lunch is showing an upward trend. Interesting, isn't it? Dine-in is declining. The blue line's going down. The orange lines are going up. One has to ask, why is dinner going down and lunch going up? Good question. Let's see if we can find that answer. Let's look now at breakfast. Breakfast is only 18 meals per day. The question, is it worth being open for breakfast? You see, breakfast, though, has gained a little bit of increase down there. Yes, must be due to PCC, because it's important for PCC to have breakfast. That's part of the program up there. But you see the delivery is dropping off drastically. The blue lines are dropping, which is fine. Okay, let's go on to Sunday brunch. Sunday brunch is really kind of, starting up. Looks like it's going to be better attended than it has been. Last May, seems like Mother's Day was a big hit. If you remember, it was a special meal that was there available for Mother's Day. But outside of that, it's been pretty slow, and as you notice, in February, the delivery just dropped off to nothing, which is hopefully where we would like it to be. We'd rather have people in the dining room. But this is what it looks like for Sunday brunch. We looked at these things to see where we should be. And I present this to you to see what the trends are, what the usage is, so that it all fits into your plan. Okay, there we go, another one. When Morrison ran its survey, they were supposed to run the survey within 180 days of the contract being signed. They didn't make that target. I don't have the exact date here. I didn't go to the trouble to find it, but they didn't make it. But on their survey, if you remember, there were 18 questions. 10 of those questions were food or service related. 8 of those questions were related to future state of food services. And if you recall the questions, would you like a little store? And so there were other questions. The other thing about their survey, which was kind of interesting, was that normally when you run a survey, you try to put out a graph kind of like this one, which you have, things are not good, things are maybe not good, but not too bad. Things are just average, or just normal. They're right down the middle. I don't know, I don't think it's good, I don't think it's bad, it's just kind of there. Or it's good, or it's excellent. Look at Morrisons did. They gave us 3 good categories, 2 negative categories, and no, I just think it's average. There was no place to put down if you thought something was just kind of okay. Not good, not bad, just okay. They didn't ask that question. They didn't give you an opportunity to do that. So when we move on to the answer from their, with the answer to their survey, we find that the overall satisfaction was pretty much, some people thought it was good, some people thought it wasn't so good. It was just kind of what's called almost a perfect bell-shaped curve. But then again, when you look at the way the question was asked, what does that good category mean? And where would you say, I don't know, it's just okay? So that's one of the, again, questions that makes me wonder about the survey. Also was provided was a summarization of comments. There were comments made about food, service, or suggestions. Of the total, there were 114 comments about food. 114 comments about food. 42% of those were negative. 37% were suggestions. Why do you make suggestions? We make suggestions most of the time because something's not right. Sometimes you make a suggestion because it's right and you can make it better, but most of the time they make a suggestion because it's not right. And 21% were negative, were positive, excuse me. So we have 42% negative, 21% positive, and the middle were suggestions. Again, kind of looks like you're the heavy negative there. As far as the service comments go, there were 55 suggestions on service. And those were things that were how to improve service. Overall, 24% were positive and 22% were negative as far as service goes. So service actually came out, in my opinion, better than the food category did. Okay, we put together a follow-up survey, which was by the committee, and we were trying to drill down on more details, and we'll get into that here shortly. We sent out surveys to all residents in Mount Vernon Towers, owners and resident renters, and we sent out surveys to the outside owners, so they would have an opportunity to chime in if they wanted. We received back 166 surveys. So that's a pretty good representation for what we were anticipating. Okay, we got back some answers. We asked the questions, how many meals per week are you dining in and dining out? 68%, I got a pointer here. 68% were in these three categories, where we dine in 3, 4, 5 days per week. We have on the other graph over there, how many people use their meal allowance, and on the center category, 32.6% of the people go over their meal allowance. So 32% of the people like eating here, or maybe don't like eating here, but have to eat here anyway. But anyway, that was what they are. Some or all of the folks will use up 61.8%. So some or all of their meal allowance use up 61.8%. Meal dining preference. People like to dine in for dinner. Delivery is a lot lower, and no meal at all for that, which is not really an important category, but on the other side is our important category. Here we see that dinner is the most important meal people think is their most important meal. But what did we see on the previous slide? We saw the dinner usage is declining. Lunch is an important meal, and lunch was going up on our previous slide, which is fine. That's good. If you want to eat dinner and lunch here, that's even better. Something's wrong with dinner, one would normally say when you see something like this. All right, we talked about, do you like the menus? And the blue line is yes, I like the menu. The orange line is no, I don't. Guess what? Dinner has a lot more has a lot of likes, but still not as many likes as lunch does. Lunch is still the meal that people like the menu, they like to attend, but yet it's their second choice as their favorite meal. What's going on? What's going on? All right. Had to keep up with my own notes here. All right. We also asked a question about what would you like to see on the menu every day? No variations, every day, so that you know you can always get something. We had a lot of responses. We had 45 different foods that were mentioned. 45 different kinds of food. But these are the ones that received the most hits, the most comments. We have hamburger got 39%. I can't believe that people like hamburgers. Can you? I mean, it's just so strange. But we have chicken salad, chicken noodle soup, tomato soup, vegetables, fruit, and avocado. So that tells us something that we probably ought to have on the menu, right? All right, let's move on. We also asked about vegetarian and vegetable plates, and 68% of the people are in these last two categories and strongly agree we need a vegetable plate available all the time. 54% of the last two categories agree that we need a vegetarian meal available. Now, you say, and look at the neithers though. These people say, well, you know, I don't really care whether you have it either way. It doesn't bother me. I eat everything. And but you have only a very few that disagree that should happen. That's a slam dunk. All right, let's move on. Well, back up. Must have hit two. All right. Okay, we'll do this one. I got my notes up sequence here. But anyway, of the top 10 vegetables residents wanted, and we asked that question, we also asked it, how do you want it cooked? But look at this, white potatoes. Boy, do you want your carbohydrates? You know, and you've got white potatoes with or without sauce or cheese. You want green beans? I think that's a good idea. My mom used to make a fantastic green bean casserole. And sweet potatoes baked or in a casserole or fried. Broccoli? Come on, broccoli, let's go. Carrots, okra. We got some southern people here, we got some okra. And we got asparagus, cauliflower, corn, zucchini, beets, turnip greens. These are the kind of vegetables people want to see at the meals. And they want to see a lot of white potatoes. So that's all right, we got some more vegetables here and how you prefer to cook them. And I'm not going to read all this to you. This is in the chart. This will be very valuable to the people putting the menus together. And I think that's where I should leave that without reading it. Except that green beans came in the top amount again. I tell you what, I have my green beans. All right. Okay, here we got sauces and gravy. We have proteins, and we want proteins and vegetables with no sauce or gravy. And again, you can see people agree heavily that we don't want the sauce and gravy, heavy sauces and heavy gravy. Again, want a la carte proteins and veggies? Yes. Questions are leaning in that direction. Okay. The other question is, do we want to keep the antipasta bar and put in a salad bar instead? Look at that. We got 61.9% of the people in these two categories. 61% of the people, 62% of the people say, yeah, let's do that. And discontinue the antipasta bar altogether. We only had 51% say discontinue it altogether. So, you know, it could be that maybe we need to do something with both of those over a period of time. Comfort foods. All right, who wants comfort foods? Everybody wants comfort foods, just about. Who wants lighter meals? Again, everybody's leaning towards, we want lighter meal options. And this one, this is the prize. You see here the big star? The big star indicates that is the one that received the most responses from everybody. Where we have these group over here was the highest percentage of people who wanted to see fruit available at breakfast. 18 people go to breakfast. Okay, and we want to see our desserts with less sugar, so that we don't have, a heavy sugar load. Do we like fried foods? Well, yeah. We got 43.9% of people that say we got too many fried foods. Too many people, they got 40, so just because we got people saying they don't want fried foods doesn't mean we have to have fried foods. But I like fried foods. We got too many starches, yet we like white potatoes. So it's, we got 50.7% of the people that agree we got too many starches in those last two bars. Okay, let's talk here about traditional cuisine. Everybody agrees, or not everybody, 47% of people agree that we like more traditional cuisine and less world cuisine. The 36% of the people agree that we need less world cuisine. And again, notice the neither bars. They're that middle bar that we talked about that Morrisons didn't have in their survey, where I don't care whether you have it or don't have it. I'm going to eat whatever's on my plate. So that's where where that neither bar is so important. All right, some more specifics. The food's too salty, and we have here kind of an interesting split, because over there on the far right-hand side, too salty, we have 27% of the people said it's too salty. We have 34% say it's probably okay, I don't know what it is. And we have 38% says the food is not too salty. That doesn't mean that they want you to put salt in it. They just says that it's not too salty. But when you transport this over to the other, you see 60.8% of the people. 60.8% of the people want low sodium. Yeah. I mean, every time you go to the doctor, he says, cut your salt down. So, and 55% want sugar-free, 53% want low-fat, 49% want gluten-free, and 44% want dairy-free. These two bottom ones are a real challenge. But that's your survey. That's what you responded. And when you take in the strongly agree and the neutral, that leaves the strongly disagree. All of them, less than 8% of the people think we don't need it. So one could read that chart to say that 92% of the people that answered the survey that live in Mount Vernon Towers want food that's not heavily on salt, and they want food that doesn't have sugar, is low fat, is gluten free and dairy free. Again, the importance of this is to show the people that are putting together menus what needs to be in the menu, what you're asking for. What you're asking. All right. A couple of items which are not really super critical, but kitchen routine runs out of entrees, pretty much a bell-shaped curve. Yes, it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Meal description does not match the meal served. Now that's one open for interpretation. It's not like you ordered a hot dog and got a hamburger. It may be more that you ordered chicken cordon bleu and you got something that really didn't look like chicken cordon bleu. So, and that it was supposed to be. So anyway, that's again pretty much a bell-shaped curve. So that's something that can be looked at and worked on, but that's not an issue. Leftovers are served. Some people think they are, some people aren't. Another bell-shaped curve. Meal quality is inconsistent. Now that is one that needs some attention, because again, you see it's heavily skewed to the no, it's not consistent side. The last two bar categories, the agree and strongly agree, are 55.7%. 55.7% of the people think the meal quality is inconsistent. And only, what is it, 1%? The strongly disagree and disagree, only, there's 15.7% right there. So 55% versus 15% on meal quality. Now this one I'm going to leave up here for a little bit while I take a drink. Okay, here we have a general set of questions we asked about the wait staff. And you see here, these are all wait staff questions in a variety of service type procedures. Generally speaking, the wait staff gets a good rating. You see the green. Generally speaking, the wait staff is doing a reasonable job. And we looked them down here at this other category, and these were negative questions that were asked about cleanliness and the tablecloths and the spoons and so forth. Ask a negative question, and in order to respond, you had to read the survey closely, which is good, because you did. And you read the survey closely, and you came back and said, no, I do not think the tablecloths are soiled and torn. So if we had worded the question the other way, we could have gotten all green on this side. But this was done, and it was a good question, good answers, and everybody read the survey, which I'm real happy to see. And then napkins should be softer and more absorbent. 55% of the people says, I don't know. They seem okay to me. Again, it's a bell-shaped curve on that one. So wanted to point that out and point out that even with the temporary labor that we're seeing a lot of, we're having reasonable service at the tables, or at least you think we're having reasonable service at the tables. Okay, we also asked a question about what can we do to cut costs? And it's interesting to me that the ones that are least desirable to you all is to increase the cost of the meal through the homeowners association fee and to reduce the food quality. You want good food quality at a good price, and you have other items that you say, well, maybe we can save some money if we reduce the dining meals, reduce the type of meals, charge extra for soup or dessert. Well, that's a possible. That's easy to figure out, and reduce the meal choices so we don't have as many items going on. But if you look back on the earlier expenses, the food cost wasn't the major problem we had. It was the labor cost. So, but again, hey, ideas. Everybody needs to put forth an idea. Some of them are nutty, but they give us an idea into something that's less nutty, and then finally you figure out how you can put a man on the moon. Because, John Kennedy was told he's crazy. You're not going to put a man on the moon. So those are the kind of things that are good to ask, and we get a good question. We get a good answer. All right. The committee then came up with some suggestions for Morrisons. And we suggest that when Morrisons is talked to, we give them 14 days to develop menus with rotating seasonal entrees and provide a greater variety. Develop menus that contain fewer items with more resident preferred choices. Now we know what the choices are because we just went through all that. Provide dietary content for items that are low sodium, low fat, low sugar. That should be fairly easy to do, and, as opposed to gluten and dairy-free. Those are two bigger items. Reduce the number of themed meals and provide a nutritional balanced meal reviewed by a dietitian. Morrison, in their printed advertising material, states that they have dietitians. But looking at some of the meals that I've seen here on the menus and so forth, it doesn't look to me like a dietitian had anything to do with it. So Morrison's needs to get on the stick. Develop consistency in menus and meals offered using standard English. I don't know, not everybody in this room is a French speaker and know what all this stuff is. If you want to use a French word or a Greek word or an Italian word, put brackets behind it and say it in English so we all know what it is.
How about Southern?
What's that, Walt?
How about Southern?
Southern, yeah. Oh, yeah, that would be. Okay, we develop menus that contain always available preferences. We saw that before. We want our hamburger. Reduce menu choices. In other words, simplify the menu. And reduce menu choices at dinner and at lunch. All right, within 30 days, that was a 14-day schedule. In 30 days, eliminate breakfast except for PCC. The hope here is that we could save some money, some labor. That was going to have to be a financial decision made by the board when they get a chance to look at all of the costs involved. Because that may not be something that we as a committee had all of the full set of data on, and I don't think, and all the details. That's something that Rita would need to get into with us. Offer Sunday brunch only on special occasions or possibly once a month. So we'd have special occasions, several of them listed here, which are opportunities, but then, or maybe we just do it once a month. Another decision needs to be made based upon how we can do it and what the costs are and what the turnout for brunch is. Make ordering and serving of meals efficient and easily understood. So, we have to go to a menu system, and then we can order the meals into a simple process of ordering.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So you said possibly canceling the Sunday brunch, just special occasions. So does that mean we don't get food on Sunday or what?
Well, that'd be something that we would have to, we'd work out. We have not, this committee didn't address that, okay? But that would have to be worked out, you're correct. Change the service model, so we would have to reduce the number of days per week the chef's table or mini buffet service is provided to at dinner. So the little mini buffet is, try to do away with that and go to a menu. And then, as it says here, increase the number of days that we have dinner available on a menu. Within 60 days. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We talked a little bit about a notice in 60 days. Okay, update menus. Introduce a lighter menu with choices from two of these items. One soup, one house salad. One soup, one half sandwich. One soup, one baked potato. Or any combination of two of those that would be served at a lower cost, maybe $1.50, $2 less than the normal meal cost. I mean, that would be just a little saving for the resident and also hopefully cut down on some of the wasted food that we have back here. Charge extra for dessert and charge extra for both soup and salad if they're both ordered. Because we serve too much food in many cases, as you well know. We do. And so there are some people who really like to have both soup and salad and they're willing to pay for it. Yeah, of course, what's it cost? Maybe it's $1, maybe it's 50 cents, I don't know. But it would have to be some small amount. Change the service model. So here we're going to eliminate the chef's table. We talked about that a little before. Provide menu, dinner service 5 days a week. This is in 60 days. Before we talked about it doing it in 30 days to reduce it. Now we're talking about eliminating it for the total period of time. Schedule the chef's table for once per month or on several special occasions and holidays with an upcharge, and make it all you can eat, because that's what it is. It's a buffet. Make it all you can eat and charge accordingly. The committee suggested that we will continue to monitor Morrison's activities and progress. We want to provide a comment card to be placed on the dining tables at each meal. Each meal, so that if there's something that goes on that meal, you can write it down and turn it in. Conduct additional surveys as required. Analyze monthly cost data, which would be available through Rita. And then one committee member would attend the quarterly business reviews with Mount Vernon and Morrisons. Part of the contract is there's to be a monthly review of the expenses and activities. And the committee would have someone in on that. More suggestions for the board to consider would be to modify the contract and allow Mount Vernon Towers to hire the dining room wait staff while Morrison continues to provide kitchen staff, menus, food purchases. However, any changes in the contract need to be reviewed by the committee, because obviously we have reviewed the contract a little better than it was originally reviewed. And a qualified assistant director is hired by Mount Vernon for the overall HOM management and to assist with the increased workload of managing the dining staff. So we want to get Mount Vernon to hire. Morrisons does this at other facilities. They allow the facility to hire their own staff to wait the dining room, and they take care of the kitchen, basically. But we want to make sure there's good control. And here's the big one. Considering issuing Morrison a letter of intent to terminate for cause as the contract financial considerations have not been met. According to the contract, Morrison will have a 60-day cure period to implement the suggestions and bring the cost into the contract amounts. If deficiencies are not cured within the cure period, then Mount Vernon may terminate upon a second-day notice. This is the same thing I said before. There's 60 days cure. There's 60 days after that they have, they'll continue to serve the kitchen, which would mean that Mount Vernon Towers then would start at the first 60 days to decide what we're going to do. Do we hire another outside contractor? Do we do it ourselves? And then we would have effectively, if Morrisons didn't cure, if they didn't cure, we would have effectively 120 days to put in here a dining service, whether it be in-house or another outside provider. So with that said, thank you. Appreciate you. We got some questions here. I say, Sue, would you grab that microphone and turn it on and take it back? I'll give it to Jill. She's on the phone.
Okay. Who's first? Way to the back.
Scott, there was something you said in one of the earlier slides, that you said it was kind of hidden in the contract when you were talking about the 2.2s and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
That one on.
How you turn it on? You can't hear me?
Yeah, you're on.
All right.
You're on. Hold it up to your mouth a little closer.
In the beginning, you had a slide that talked about section 2.2 or whatever it was, and there was something hidden in there that you had to read 3 times to understand. And it kind of made it sound like that no matter what Morrisons did, the contract allowed them to do it.
Yep.
So I didn't understand that. Is that what you meant to say?
Correct.
So in the
Yes.
last 12 months, or 6 months, or 3 months, whatever period you have, how much have we paid Morrisons, and how much did we expect to pay?
We had that on the slides, but off the top
Yeah,
of my
but you have it
head,
broken down.
right, on the top of my, off the top of my head was $1,500,000, basically is what we paid them. We anticipated paying them $122,000 less than $1,500,000
Total.
total.
So roughly 10%.
Right. And right now, that 122 is in what their dispute category. And that dispute means that we are holding that money, and they are supposed to come and sit down and discuss who's going to pay what. And that has not been, that's not happened.
So we may not pay all of that 122.
We may not pay, I would want to push us towards paying near nothing on that myself, but we'll see where that goes. We had some more questions out here, yeah.
Thank you. I just go back to my college days.
Please hold the mic up.
I go back to my college days where my parents paid for a meal plan. Every student was not on the same meal plans. I do not eat breakfast. I know David Knapp goes every morning. I think he goes for lunch. I don't go for lunch. So what if we commit for a month or 2 months to a meal plan where they're not planning on me maybe being there for bacon and eggs? Would that not help them with their ordering from their service people? And the other thing that I've noticed and I've heard is there are folks here that, for instance, one lady lives in a 2-bedroom apartment and she's not using her meal allotment. I know a lady who doesn't go to the dining room at all, and she's in a 2-bedroom. So she's paying money in that they're using up for us, but what if she hauls off and starts coming? And all the other ladies start coming. That's gonna throw the whole thing off. So I don't think that we can count on what we see right now. But if we could commit to, I'm only coming for dinner, put me on that meal plan and let the kitchen know who to expect, and give that to your dietitian.
Well, what you're saying, if I can rephrase it, is you want people to make reservations a month in advance.
If I know I'm not coming for breakfast, I'll let you know.
Right. And we have had pretty much a lot of pushback on people making reservations. So I don't see that going anywhere. But we have historical amounts that they know that they normally have 18 people for breakfast. They have 144 people for lunch. And they plan on that. That's part of what their skill level is.
Try it 1 month.
Well, we did try it for the last 3 or 4 months where we had everybody making reservations. So I don't think that's going anywhere. We had another question over here.
I would like clarification on something you had up there. You wanted to get rid of Sunday brunch, which means there would be no food served here from noon on Saturday until noon on Monday. We have a lot of people here who do not have access to cooking or getting their own food. And I would like clarification if that's what you had up there.
Well, that was one of the comments that was made and one of the potential suggestions. That has not been implemented. It would be discussed more thoroughly to find out all the more ramifications on it. But in the other little side to that is we've heard before that this is supposed to be an independent living area that many of us should be able to provide for ourselves. And the kitchen, not the kitchen staff, but the front staff will arrange for groceries to be delivered for you if that's a problem. So I mean, I tend to agree with you. I'd rather see Sunday lunch. I'd want to see some Sunday lunch going on. That was a suggestion that was put forth as a potential to save some money. To be discussed. Up front here, yeah.
Scott, I'll make just a
Go
quick
ahead.
suggestion. Or if you go back to the slides when we were looking at the meal data, so the meals, when you look at the breakdown about how people are eating currently, the number of people that are actually eating brunch is really low. So that was why we made that suggestion. It's not, these are not set in stone. It's just like they're, you know, when we're looking at the rising costs and the meals and what everybody, like these are all the answers that you gave us. These are the things that you said that you were interested in looking at. So in looking at those, like how do we, it's a tough question. These are tough questions. Like how do we help manage the cost, but still give everybody what they want, or at least try to get it closer to what everybody wanted, get costs a little bit more in line with what we were expecting. So these are just some ideas. They're not set in stone, but just so you understand, when you look at the percentage of people that are actually eating breakfast and actually eating brunch, they're really, really low. So just some suggestions.
Right.
Why don't you tie your lunch into your dinner, or your breakfast into your lunch? Consolidates the hours, so somebody gets what they want.
The question you raised was why our lunch is going up and dinner's going down. That's a no-brainer. Once you opened up full service, for $7.50 you can go down and get soup and salad and entree and dessert, bring your containers and take half of it home with you and have dinner that night.
Agreed, Nancy. And that's one of that and the fact I think that menu service is not available at dinner.
Will you address that?
Yes. She's bringing the mic. Hold the mic up. Talk into the top of the mic.
Right against your lips.
Close to your lips. Talk right into the top of the mic.
Honey, you can't be heard.
We can't hear you.
Can take food home for $3 a box.
Jill, can you
They're
repeat?
paying for their food.
Repeat what she says.
I think the question was that the people, there's lots of food left over and the people that work are taking it home for $3 a box. Okay.
They pile food out there. There's more food at 6:30 than there is at 5:30. And they're entitled to take home a box of food for $3. And we're paying for their food.
I think the comment here is the fact that at the end of the mini buffet called the chef's table,
Yeah.
they pile up a lot of extra food on the table to be served. And because there's nobody in the dining room, the people that are serving the food box it and take it home. And that would be solved again if we did away with that mini buffet called the chef's table. So that would be solved, and that's where we want to go. Yes?
First of all, thanks for what the committee has done. This is probably not been easy to do. But, so if I'm reading you right, I'm a little bit appalled by the contract that was agreed upon before. I mean, it appears to me that Morrison served a lot less meals than projected, and it charged a lot more than what they were contracted to do. So I wonder, did we have an attorney looking at this contract, or are we going to have an attorney so that we don't repeat the mistake? and
Did one.
yeah, then what are we gonna do about that? I mean, whose responsibility of that mistake is gonna be?
Well, this comes back to the board. And the board that approved the contract reviewed the contract, and it was reviewed by an outside legal firm also, just to make sure there was no real legal problems, not whether they were operational problems. Any other questions?
Thank you. Sir, I'm curious as to how many tenants, residents in this whole entire community feel that they can get in the car and go to the grocery stores. I think that's a really important thing to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you. How many people can go to the grocery, get in their own car and go to the grocery store was the question, so anyway.
The whole community.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
All right. Bill?
First of all, I think we should all give the committee a big hand of appreciation.
Thank you.
I realized the membership did not vote on this. This was just the board. Was it the whole board?
The whole board voted on it, and in the letter that went out, the vote was 4-0. Because I abstained from voting on it.
Okay. Well, we had the impression that that this maximum really meant what it was a maximum. That's what it was represented in an email from Brian Greenberg. And this is very disappointing that if it was reviewed by a lawyer and this loophole was not spotted, shame, shame.
Okay, we got more questions in the back? We got more questions in the back here?
I have several questions. You know, they said independent living, but all of us moved in with the idea that these meals were available. And so I don't think they should be taken away. You've gotten rid of Saturday dinner already. And certainly, like she said, the 48 hours with no food is ridiculous. Now, breakfast, I don't know what the breakfast menu is. Is it only the 3 things in the that comes out on the menu thing? Or is that all you can get for breakfast? I mean, if there's 3 things the same for 7 days, who wants to eat breakfast the same thing every day? So,
Cheerios.
now,
We got an answer here in the back for you. Okay, well, let's let Helen finish first, though.
Let's have Ellen's answer her question.
Now, as far as the chef's table, I do like them, but I think in some ways it's expensive. I said to Steve tonight, salmon again, and he said, well, we're going to have to cut back because it's so expensive. I mean, every time we turn around lately, they've had salmon on it, I swear. Maybe that's because I don't eat it, but, And, I mean, they do have good meatloaf, or they used to. I don't remember seeing meatloaf on the dinner menu, So, we could cut back certainly on the more basic foods as we were talking about.
No, that as we saw in the presentation, we want more comfort foods, meatloaf. And so, I mean, that would be presented to Morrisons and to get that back onto the menu, yes.
Now, my sort of feeling was that when of course the virus did all of this, but we could not continue to have our own staff, which is why we were sort of almost forced to go to somebody like Morrisons. And is this still not true? Everybody talks about how hard it is to get help. So,
It's still hard to get help.
yeah.
Yep.
So for us to do it ourselves, like
These are decisions that haven't been made. These are just ideas, thoughts, opportunities.
Yeah, well, what I meant is it even a possibility to do it ourselves? I don't think it physically is.
Well, we would have to go to work to find out on that. Yeah.
right.
I just want to make a comment on Bill Baxter's comment about the loophole in the contract. Bill, and to everybody here, Dan, you asked the question, a perceptive question. Okay? What I want to say about the contract is we put a maximum in there. And what we did, as soon as they hit the maximum, we stopped paying them. Okay, so we have withheld $122,000, which was on that board, from Morrisons. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't get there, or we won't have a negotiation to it. But what they didn't do was they haven't provided us with a good solution on the labor cost. Food's going up. You guys can go to the grocery store, you can see what's happening for food.
Everything's going up.
And what we're doing here is we're providing a meal for $9.50 for dinner. Try to get that, okay? And we have a choice. We can say, you know what, we're gonna raise the dues. But you know what? We already did that to you. We already raised the dues. We did not change the meal cost. We are funding, we are subsidizing the meals here. Right. That's what's happening. And for people who don't participate in the meal program, you're subsidizing those who do. Okay? That's what's happening. Okay? The reality is that what we have is, while we're paying a fortune for labor, a fortune, that's the first issue that we have to solve. First and foremost, it's the labor issue. Because the food costs, while they've gone up a lot, okay, Morrisons has actually kept the food costs down. Okay? And so what's happening here is that we've got the staff to serve. It's temporary staff. It's expensive staff. But it's there. So if more people go in, all right, the cost of labor doesn't change. The food cost will go up marginally. And it will cost us a little bit more. But the labor cost won't. What I see in the survey, and it's the first time I've seen it, what I saw that might be really, really good is there is good information about the menu choices, what you want. And it just feels to me like the right thing to do here is to get the committee or the dining group or somebody to get a good concept about what our meal plan, not the meal plan, but the menu program should look like. Because you got a lot of ideas, and nobody's going to be here and eat 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. You choose which days you go, what meal you like, and you should do that, and it should be satisfactory. And I think that in the survey that I saw, there was a lot of good information about meals. The cost thing is stupid, all right? It's costing us a lot of money, more than we wanted. But look around you. Go to the grocery store. You're better off going to a restaurant than going to a grocery store, all right? And so to your, I just wanted to make that point back to the contract. We have held them to the maximum number they agreed to. And we're going to hold them to that. And we're not going to pay them until we know that they're motivated to give us a better program around labor. And that's it.
You know, I would say, yeah, I mean, those are some really, I agree. Like, I didn't know very much about the contract or about what you guys wanted, but, you know, considering COVID and everything that happened with the supply chain, you know, the question that the board put to us in the annual meeting was, do you want to terminate the contract? I don't know. Like, I didn't have a clue about anything that was contained in it. And considering the things that the board had to deal with, I think they made a really good choice as far as what we can do for what they could do for the residents. And I would say I would have to applaud you guys for doing that, because it was hard. It was really a difficult choice to make.
But knowing that, and like what Brian said, was, they're kind of operating up here at the not to exceed part, but a lot of that, as he pointed out, is our labor costs. And so Morrisons is hiring, from everything that the data that Rita provided, is that they're not using their employees, but they're using temporary employees that they're bringing in, and that's really driving that cost way, way up. And that probably is, who knows if it's gonna change? Do we know if it's gonna change? We don't know if that's gonna change. There's no magic ball, there's no crystal ball here. So I feel like they did a really good thing in getting Morrisons in to make sure that we did have a meal service. But still, we'll need to kind of bring, herd some cats for a little bit and try to get things to where you have the foods that you want, you have the meal preferences that you want. And so, because a lot of the comments and a lot of the questions that we used to develop the survey were from the comments that you made on Morrisons. So we looked at your comments and we asked, and we took a deeper dive saying, well, if you're not happy with X, what really would you prefer to have if you know you've got to make choices to reduce costs? So if we know we've got to do that, what do you want? What do you want us to do? And I feel I'm really appreciative of everybody that completed a survey, because it helps us kind of understand how to give you what you want.
Let me try that perceptive question again, because I'm not so sure I asked it thoroughly enough based on what the gentleman up here added to it. The $122,000 more than what we expected to spend over what period of time?
That was over the first year of the
Right,
contract.
so the first 12 months. And in those first 12 months, did they serve the number of meals we expected them to serve? So the 122,000 might be 300,000 if we took into account the actual cost per meal. Because you have some huge numbers up there,
Yeah.
$20 and all that.
Again, probably not, because with the labor cost gets up here, we've got the staff to serve 1,000.
And that was my next point, back to Helen, I think, was talking about temps. I ran a temp agency for 7 years. A temp gets X dollars. The temp agency adds to it for their profit. I guarantee you Morrisons is adding to it so that they're making profit off the food they buy and the temp that they provide. Temp agencies do not have a warehouse of people that Morrison calls up and says, send me 6 people. They go out on the open market like MVT could do. So I don't want anybody here to think that Morrisons has the ability to get people and we don't. If we want to hire our own people, we can hire them just like they, and I guarantee you the hourly rate would be less.
If we hire our own people, the hourly rates will be less, no question about that.
And I agree with you, Dan. I'll just clarify a couple of things. So they are not marking up the temp agency labor to us. But I agree. If the temp agency can get labor, then Morrisons can get labor. We can get labor.
And they are marketing up because it's a cost-plus contract.
Well, they're not. But they're not, because we're getting the invoice from the temp agency to see. So it's too much of a markup, but they're not screwing us on top of screwing us there.
Like 40%
Right. It's actually about, I would say that's right, 40%, right? I would say that's right, yeah. So one of the things that we, just so that you know, Scott put it up there, Rita had, as a recommendation, Rita had already had a conversation with the president of Morrisons to talk about moving the temporary labor to us directly, so that we've already agreed with them that we can do that. We are having a tough time contractually with the co-employment piece of that, right? They're hiring from the temp agency. They've expressed interest in coming direct with us. And so we need to work through that co-employment.
And if you decide to do that, to hire on the temp agencies, you should not have to. temp employees, you should not have to pay the temp agency a finder's fee for doing that. Typical is after 200, maybe 300 hours of employment as a temp, you get them for free.
You are correct, and we should be getting them for free. That's the plan that we're working on. We haven't been able to come through. There's two things to that. One is the negotiation to do it. The second is there's a piece of the contract that binds us to employment with Morrisons, and we need to unravel that employment piece of it, and they've been amicable to doing that. So we just haven't figured out how to write that correctly.
Okay.
I just have, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're on. I just want to say two things. First of all, I want to thank the committee for what they've done, because they have dug up some stuff that I didn't know, and they presented it in a very great way. And we have a problem here, folks. The problem is inflation is 8.1%.
Yeah.
And we've done everything.
Put that up to your mouth, please.
It only sounds funny to you.
Okay. I just want to point out that I want to thank the committee for what they've done. And they've done a very worthwhile service for us as a community. Secondly, it's going to get worse. We can solve this problem in some ways, but we can't beat inflation. So just don't think it's going to keep being $9.50 for what we eat, or $7.50 for lunch. And don't think that we have an instant solution for the problem, because we don't. It's not our problem. We just are victims of what's happening. So keep that in mind, please, when you worry about what you're paying. Because I guarantee you the board's doing everything they can to keep the prices down to where we can all afford it. So some of us also pay, and some of us also eat here. Thank you.
What Reed said is true, and of course the committee's objective was not to address all of those items about meal cost and per meal, and whether the HOA meal allowance is correct, or this or that, or that was not in our purview. So we did not go there.
They had their hand up.
We got some more hands back here.
More hands?
Thank you for coming. Thank you for what
I'm depending on delivery meals. Except now, this is temporary. I hope eventually I'll be very independent again. But right now, I cannot come in and for dinner. I can't eat someone's being delivered, and it's inedible. Rice on every meal. Rice is a vegetable. Sometimes there are no vegetables.
We plan to continue to keep the meal delivery service going, so that will be, we just need to improve it all together. Agreed.
People are sick too, and they need here.
Consideration. I know, we've done.
Jill, bring the microphone up, Jill.
Talking about inflation, but you haven't mentioned that for the last 2 months, Sandy Springs, Georgia, and Roswell, Georgia, have the highest metro inflation in the country. Ours is between 10.5 and going up over 11. He mentioned 8. We're nowhere even near that.
Well, it's 8 nationwide is what he's talking about.
So keep in mind that our inflation rate in Sandy Springs is the top of the country.
That's true. And one of the reasons for that is that our cost levels have been below the national average for so many years. And so you begin to come up to just the national average, your rate of increase is going to be greater than the rate of increase nationally, because our base is lower and we're going to the same level that other people have been at for a long time. So yes, we're going to have percentage-wise higher increases. Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening. We've kept you late already. It's 8:50, and the contract, not the contract, but the report will be made available via email for those who want it, and it will be made, there will be copies at the front desk for people who would like to check it out and return it to the front desk. They are not there at this point in time, but they will eventually show up there. We'll let you know about that.
All right.
Thank you for coming.